I've been a hard money lender for over 19 years, and I've done over $500 million in loans, all with private capital. And at that time, I've learned 4 very powerful lessons that have allowed me to make incredible returns for myself, my partners, and my capital investors just from hard money lending. So today, I'm going to share with you the exact 4 lessons so you can start or scale your own hard money lending business, understand how to raise capital in the most efficient way possible, and ultimately make the amount of money you dreamed every single year. Like I said, my partner Chris and I run a $50 million per year hard money lending portfolio. And we've helped over 100 other hard money lenders scale their lending business from $0 to even up to $100 million a year in closed loans. So by the way, if you want to make sure you scale your hard money lending business the right way, the most profitable and efficient way possible, just click the link below. You can apply to work directly with us. Now, let's get into it. Now, the first 3 lessons are going to be things that we learned early on in our career, and we've been refining them over time. And I'm going to give you the exact kind of block and tackle strategies so that you can get moving very, very quickly and see immediate results. And then the last lesson is going to be more of an advanced strategy that took us years and years and years to refine. And honestly, I'd probably be very cautious to do any more loans until you understand this lesson. I'm going to share my screen with you real quick. So how do you raise capital at the beginning? I get a question a lot. And in essence, it says, how do you first raise capital if you don't have any? And we started out, we were in our 20s. We didn't have any of our own capital. We didn't have any rich parents or anything like that that could give us capital. So we went out there and we, in essence, created a strategy to find capital in order to do the deals. Because if you don't have any capital, I hate to say it, but you can't do deals. You need the capital. So we're going to go through 1.0, which is kind of the beginner's guide of raising capital, and then 2.0, which is a little bit advanced. And this is important. Even if you already have raised capital and you want to raise more, this is a very, very good strategy to do so. And this could be for direct placement loans. This could be if you're raising in a fund, maybe you have unsecured promissory notes. This strategy works kind of both ways. So first off, you got to understand DISC personality type. These are the 4 DISC personality types: dominant, influential, steadiness, and conscientious. Now, typically, we try to raise capital from dominant, D, and then S personality types. These are the types of personalities we try to raise money from: business owners, real estate investors, doctors, lawyers, people in finance, sometimes accountants. The problem with accountants is sometimes they're C personality, which is a very analytical type of personality. Sometimes we also raise capital from maybe there's relatives or referrals or non-business people. Those are a little bit more S personality. So the Ds are more dominant. They're the alphas. They understand the investment. They probably have capital. They're great people to do business with in general. But at the same time, they don't need lots and lots of details. You explain to them the investment, you explain to them the fund, you explain to them the opportunity, and they get it. The nuts and bolts in real quick detail of this is what we do. I personality types, we usually don't try to raise money from, mostly because they just don't have a ton of investable capital. They're typically the life of the party, very, very talkative. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. They're always grass is green on the other side. They're chasing shiny objects. Now, most people in general have multiple personality types, and it's important to understand what they are. And you can learn this just from studying up a little bit on DISC personality, but you want to stick to the ones where they're high Ds or high S's. S, steadiness, they take care of everybody. They're just good people. They want to take care of people. They're very trustworthy. So if they trust you with their money, they're going to continue to put more and more and more money. They're just looking for a passive return. They put a lot of faith and a lot of trust in you, and they're very easy to work with. And then the conscientious ones are a little bit more analytical. Your engineers, your accountant types, those are challenging to begin with because some of them also have D, and then some of them are easy to work with, but then some of them are just over analytical and they'll talk themselves out of a good opportunity. So in our experience, we try to stay heavily focused on the D and the S's. Most of these folks have investable capital about $50,000 to $2 million. Typically, anyone over $2 million might be a little bit too large for this investment. Yeah, maybe they want to diversify into this type of asset class, but usually they're looking for higher rates of return, whatever, a 10% or whatever your fund offers or whatever your capital structure offers. And then obviously you don't want someone too low. So typically someone who's got a few $100,000 of investable capital is usually a really good source. They can potentially add to that in the future if they want. And usually what we found is they're within 1 or 2 circles. Like think about how LinkedIn used to be structured. You'd have people in your immediate circle and then people in your second tier circle. So it's people that know somebody that you know. We've always found that there's enough capital in the room just based on your immediate circle and then people that they know. And we've been able to create co-lending opportunities with them just by spreading the word and making them aware of the types of the deals that we do. But typically having good opportunities is what brings good capital to the table. It's hard to find capital unless you have good, AKA great deals, right? If you're lending borrowers 100% financing, you're not paying interest payments to the back end, like you're not going to raise capital for that. But if you're doing a loan and it's a really, really strong deal at a low LTV to a good borrower on a good local asset, raising capital makes it way, way easier easier. So let's go through kind of what happens. So originally you get introduced with them, and then you'd send them some sort of pitch deck, which is very short and sweet and concise. This is how the deals are set up. This is where we find deals. This is how the deals are structured. This is the return to the capital investors and things like that. That's usually the pitch deck. And then that would turn into some sort of in-person meeting. You could also do this meeting via Zoom if you need to, if they're out of state, but that usually will spark their interest. And then you have an in-person meeting. Now, in our experience, our close rate after we have an in-person meeting is very high. And that's typically because number one, we follow this process, which we're going to continue to go through. And then number two, they're good deals. They're good investments. Like I said, they have to be low LTV good investments. Usually what should happen towards the end of this meeting, and this is a buy question if an investor asks this, and most of the time they do, they'll say, wow, that seems like a really good deal. Why wouldn't they just go to their own bank? Bam. When that happens, that is a good sign, right? Because they're like, wow, this is like a bankable loan. Why would they pay a 13% interest to me when they could just pay a 6 or 7% interest rate to the bank? Real easy response is, you're right. A lot of these borrowers and deals are very strong and they could be bankable, but let's be honest, banks can't close in a few business days. Banks don't like construction loans. We're working with real estate investors that are fixing, flipping houses, or rental property owners that need quick cash for other business or commercial purpose needs. Although they could go to their bank, they don't want to go through the red tape and go through all their financials. We want a very easy collateral-based loan, and they're willing to pay a little bit more for it. That's a buy question. So then typically at the end of the conversation, we'll be like, well, okay, this is definitely interesting. How would I get started? And then typically the response is, listen, we don't have any investment opportunities at this point, but we are growing and we will soon. And I'll reach back out to you when we can, because you don't want to seem desperate, like overly desperate, like, oh, I need this capital right now. And then they'll get nervous. And that's true. You're going to be growing as you continue to raise capital and find more deals. So put them on the shelf. A month later, reach out to them when you have a live deal, and the closing rate's very, very high. You go answer questions with them on the phone, send them over the email agreements. You do your first deal, you close, and then it turns into more and more business over time. Now, this is part two, the advanced part. So that's part one. Part two is use your closings that you're doing for marketing. And what do I mean by that? You have an email distribution list of potential investors. You close a deal. You send out an email that says, hey, we just closed this really good deal, 123 Main Street. Borrower put up 30%. They had, this particular credit. Seems like a good opportunity. And then the capital investor's like, oh man, I missed out on that deal. Like, you're not fishing for, oh, hey, I got this deal. Anybody want it? That's a bad idea. But you are sending deals or samples of deals that you did close, because that will in essence spark their interest to want to do another deal. So we'd like to have a list in our database to send them. We use loan servicing software to service loans, but it turns into a capital raising machine. And the reason why is the notifications. Hey, capital investor, you just got paid. Hey, capital investor, we just got paid off on a loan. Hey, capital investor, here's your monthly statement. And there's constant automatic touches. And then next thing you know, capital investor will be like, hey, can I put more money into your fund? Or I have a friend, can I do another deal with you? Or whatever the case is. And it turns into a capital raising machine. The popular ones are the mortgage office and then lendersoftware.com. A lot of folks in our group use that. And then obviously ask for exclusive referrals. With the referrals, you have to start this whole process this way. But the conversion rate will just be so much higher. Obviously they'll keep referring friends and family, bringing stuff in, stick to the process, and you'll end up with a lot of capital over time. Now, it takes time to do this, right? It's not going to happen overnight. And from our experience, we usually can get a capital investor to come in, and then we usually don't want them to do a second deal until like a full cycle goes through. And after the loans cycle through a little bit, then they can put in more and more just so they can see, and it's performing. Last thing you want to do is raise all this capital, and then there's a hiccup here and there, and the capital investor gets upset. So you want to make sure they're getting taken care of. So again, that's how our capital raising setup is. It took us years to figure that out, and we learned that, and a lot of other members of our group use that exact same model. And it's pretty simple after you understand it. It's a good way to raise capital. Okay, so let's go through the second thing. And we get a lot of questions on this as well. Is there anywhere, hard money lenders go wrong and absolutely derail their process and just in essence get them to quit, not do deals anymore? And it's like, yeah, you do bad deals, you're done. Like, if you do bad deals, you're losing money. You're going to have capital investors that are upset. You want to be doing good deals regularly. That's the strategy. So let's talk about getting these good deals on a regular basis. Because let's be honest, if you're not doing good deals, it's going to take you a lot of time during the default process. You're not going to get paid because they're not making monthly payments. It's going to be a headache. And then the capital investors are going to get upset, and eventually everything implodes. So the whole thing comes back to getting good deals. Not just good deals, great deals. Great deals. And I understand that most people are like, well, if I don't offer 100%, there's other lenders that offer 100% finance, or there's other lenders that offer 90% financing. There's other lenders that lend out cheaper than I do. Okay, great. There's competition in everything in life. You got to go continue to market and get good deals over and over and over and over. Finding good deals, follow proper scripting, continue to work and build relationships with these folks. Most private lenders and hard money lending companies, they don't need to compete with Kiavi. That's a different product. You will lose. I know hard money lending companies that have built funds to try to compete with Kiavi, and they will lose and they will go out of business because they will do deals that are bad and they're higher leverage. It doesn't make sense. So let's go through online and offline stuff. And again, we can talk about free stuff. We can talk about paid stuff. We try to talk about the free, lowest hanging fruit stuff. So online, make sure you have credibility. Build a website, all your social media profiles, your Google My Business stuff, everything online, doing content pieces, maybe one content piece a day, talking about real estate, talking about hard money lending, talking about how you can help your clients, your real estate investors, clients. You're building credibility online. Let me back up 1 second, actually, for anyone who's just watching this channel, because this is something we talk about all the time. The entire point of doing marketing is actually to build your database. So when I say database, you're building your database with email and phone numbers. That is important. Every single person you talk to and you get your business card, you put them in your database. Every single person that comes on your website, they get put into your database, right? Because they're opting into something and you can send them an email, you can call them or do whatever. Our business is based on our database because then we have local real estate investors to do deals with. Think about this. You're interested in a product and you go into a store to buy that product, or maybe you go to a website and you buy that product, whatever it is. But let's say they don't have that product in stock and you leave. Like, that store doesn't have your information. That website probably doesn't have your information. You're just going to go to another competitor or whatever the case is. That can't happen in this. If you're spending time, if you're spending money, you're spending resources to get somebody to come to your website, to meet somebody at a meetup group, to have a meeting with somebody, you have to get their information so you can follow up with them at a later date. Most deals that come in today are not ready to close today. They're not qualified. They don't accept your terms. You don't want to work with them. They're not in an area. They're shopping around. They don't have a property under contract yet. That doesn't mean like, okay, call me in the future. That's not going to work. You follow up with them with email sequences, with phone sequences, with text messages. We use Go High Level at this point. It's a CRM that we built out a few months ago. We've used to use other things like Infusionsoft, MailChimp, things like that. You know, if you're just getting started, do something simple just to get this going. If you have a more built out operation, build out something a little bit more sophisticated. But the important part is building that database. So we talked about a lot of the online stuff, right? Like, you can have loan applications on there. Do what you got to do to get people seeing your stuff online. Now, the other important part about online is credibility. Don't just think that you're going to build a website and an Instagram page and a LinkedIn profile and people are going to just automatically see that. That's okay. They don't need to automatically see that. Guess what? That's also credibility. You're not going to be able to raise capital if you don't have credibility. You need credibility by putting stuff online. Case studies are a great one. That's a very popular page on our website, is our case study page and our testimonial page. People like to see what other deals that we're already currently doing. We add them to our website. We add them to our social media profile. You meet somebody at a meetup group and you give them a business card. They're going to Google you. They're going to look at your website. They're going to look at your social media profiles. That's what happens. That's how, we're doing stuff online to build our database. When we do paid traffic on Google and on Meta, we buy leads from connected investors. We buy leads from bigger pockets. All of those things that we're doing, the goal of that is to put them into our database, right? Anybody who is a real estate professional, real estate investor, or real estate pro, mortgage broker, real estate agent, appraiser, someone who works with investment transactions should get put into your database. And they should get the same stuff from you on a regular basis. At minimal, a weekly email, at minimum, a monthly text, and obviously outbound phone calls to them and following up with them on a regular basis. Hey, just seeing if you're working on any new projects, love to help you out, blah, 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 blah. Same with offline stuff. Lowest hanging fruit is go to a meetup group. Most real estate investors and hard money lenders don't want to go to meetup groups, or a lot of them don't. You know why? Because they think it's a waste of time. Because if there's 100 people in that room, 80% of them probably will never do a deal and probably aren't qualified. That being said, 20 of them probably are. 15 of them, will do a deal here and there. And then 5 of them are probably real good investors. It's important to stay in front of that. Get their email addresses. Start from getting business cards from them to trying to speak at meetup groups. Maybe even start your own group. We have over 6,000 people in our group. We haven't done a live event here in a few years because we've been lazy, although we should, but we still have 6,000 people in the meetup group. And guess what? I can still email them because I have that database of them to do stuff. And we used to have a few hundred people that would come to our group. It was great. It turned in a lot of stuff. When we want loans inside Hard Money Bankers, what do? We email our database. We text our database. We call our database. It's our book of business. Everybody that you meet, that you create relationships with, goes into your database. That's where deals come from, over and over and over and over and over. Let's move on to the next very important lesson, having a team in place. And we're going to go through how our team is set up and what we do. Because as a hard money lender, you got to wear a lot of hats. And then at some point, you need to scale. You got to do people. You got to do processes in place. You got to put systems and automation into place. But at the beginning, you definitely are wearing multiple hats. The hardest hat to wear as a hard money money lender should be, I got to be a sales guy and I got to be an underwriter. You got to accomplish both to work with borrowers. That's important. So you can't be too salesy and you can't be too underwriting. You got to be a little bit of both. Make sure you're getting deals, but make sure you're only doing good deals to the right borrowers that are going to perform. So let's start with a built out hard money lending company. And then you can back that out to you, in essence, wearing the majority of the hats yourself, or maybe a business partner or one-off person. So you need an originator. You need a processor. You need some sort of underwriter. You need a bookkeeper for closing loans and servicing loans and keeping track. You need investor relations, which is important. You need typically some sort of property inspector or somebody going out to properties that help you evaluate them and doing construction draws and things like that. What am I missing? Maybe biz dev and marketing, admin, things like that. These two are the top level jobs. I do underwriting. My business partner, Chris, does investor relations. We're never giving up those two positions. We're owner operators. That's what we do. When we started, I was the originator. I was the processor. I was the underwriter and I was the inspector, and I did some of the marketing biz dev. I did half of this. Now, Chris, he did, when we started, bookkeeping. He did investor relations, and he did a lot of the default management was another thing, but that's kind of built into investor relations and stuff. And then he did half of the marketing as well. So that was just the two of us. And then let's go through our first hire. Our first hire was a bookkeeper, someone on the back end, and someone on the front end was our second hire, a processor. Now, some hard money lending companies overlap this. We've always found it challenging to overlap because they're different personality types. Typically, a bookkeeper has a C personality type and they're analytical. They have attention to detail. They might not want to be front facing. And a processor, typically has some S. They want to take care of people. They have a little bit of I. They obviously need a little bit of C, right? Because they need to stay things organized, but they're front facing. So this is more front facing. This is more back facing. You can combine this into one or you can separate them. Those two were first. And then we hired a property inspector because I was, we were going out to every property. We were doing every inspection, all the valuations. We were doing all the draws. We would collect $400 up front to do valuations. We collect $195 per draw. So if we're doing 3 draws on a fix and flip plus the $400 up front, that's $1,000. And that's just on one loan. So that was able to support money for an inspector. So then we got that in place. And then we put some loan originators in place. Our biz dev and our marketing, like Chris and I still handle a lot of marketing stuff, but biz dev is still kind of done through our originators. We have multiple originators and partners to do so. These are all the hats that you're going to have to wear, all the roles that you're going to have. And then you've got to figure out inside your operation, which ones you want to automate, which ones you want to do yourself, or in essence, which ones you want to have somebody else in the organization or hire for. All right. Let's keep it moving. So this last thing is honestly probably the most important thing. And this takes time to do. This takes time to learn. And the reason why is you got to do deals and cycle through deals so you can determine which deals are going to perform and which deals are not going to perform. Chris and I can tell you upfront which loans are going to perform, which loans are not. So we came up with this risk profile of a hard money loan. 90% of our portfolio, we try to keep in the qualified section, and then 10% of our portfolio we keep in the less qualified. So let's go just quickly through some of the traits of a qualified deal. We'll go up to 65% for qualified. But people that are qualified, good credit, good experience, strong assets, know what they're doing, have additional contingencies. They have good characteristics, right? They can take a project that potentially runs into problems and figure out a way to fix it up. They can figure out ways in order to make it. Now, obviously, good qualified deals still could go wrong. We've done loans where borrower brought a lot of cash to the table. They have good credit. They have experience. We've been involved in deals that they committed fraud, or they ran out of cash, or they overpriced the property and it sat in the market for a long time, or their contractor stole from them and they couldn't make that work. So good deals, qualified loans, they still do go bad. But again, there's a lot less risk in those deals and they typically perform on a regular basis. Now, the less qualified deals, we try to do at like 40, 45, maybe as high as 50 LTV. Lower credit, unprofessional, lack experience. Maybe they inherit a property. I share this story a lot. A borrower that inherits like a $400,000 property free and clear, and they need like $100,000 to renovate it and they have bad credit, don't know what they're doing, they're going to default. Are you going to lose money on the deal? No, chances are probably not. But they're going to default and they're going to stop making payments. And loans that stop making payments are not good for business. Your investors get mad. You got to front it in your fund. If you have a fund model, they're not performing. They turn into bad. Now, on the back end, when the property exits and you recoup it all, that's great. But in real time, it's not a great situation. And that's okay if part of your portfolio is set up like that, but it can't be your whole portfolio. If you have a whole dirty portfolio, you're going to play defense all day long. And it's going to be a real headache to do so. Again, these deals can go bad the same way as those. The difference is some of these people, they might not be able to afford the payments at all, or they can't refinance. If someone has bad credit, you have to be be pulling credit as a lender, because if someone has bad credit, they can't refinance. They don't have many exit strategies. It's a real challenge. So here's the issues with defaults in general, right? Attorney fees are high. Foreclosures take a long time in a lot of states. Judgments are expensive to collect on. We have to step in potentially and cover the taxes, the insurance, the lawsuits, whatever it is, in order to get this. You're throwing good money and bad money in this company. It takes time. You have unhappy capital investors. You might get dragged into legal proceedings. You might get sued. You don't want to lose money. You want to do good deals. So the reason why I say that this takes time to learn is you've only been in this business for a few years. You won't know this. You won't see this because you haven't had enough volume. You haven't enough transactions. You haven't enough experience to know which deals are going to work, which deals are not going to work. On paper, all these deals typically work. You inherit a property, $400,000. They got bad credit, unsophisticated. They do $100,000 cash out for renovation purposes. On paper, it's like, oh man, this is a home run. It's a 25 LTV loan. I'll just take the property. Yeah. But the borrower is going to make unsophisticated decisions, and they're just going to think you're going to steal their property. And that's not what's trying to happen. You just want to get paid off. You want to make your monthly payments and pay off. But then all of a sudden, if you try to go foreclose on this, they're going to file bankruptcy. Not because they're bankrupt, because they want to stall the process. Then they might countersue you. So you have an ongoing lawsuit, right? Things that you don't want to do. And then obviously there's also risks that are out of your control. The reason why we like to do good loans is because even their good loans are still going to have risks, and they're still going to have defaults. Let's deal with the default of a good loan. Let's not do a loan that we know is going to have risks of default. So there could be title fraud. There could be cut title claims. There could be lawsuits. There could be negligent. Listen, we did loans. There was a government shutdown. There was COVID. There was stuff out of our control. So again, cash is king. The more the borrower puts into a deal, the better the situation is. Cash is king in these particular cases. When you're doing deals, typically don't lend higher than 65 LTV of the after repair value. Make sure the borrowers have ample down payments. Make sure you're checking their credit. Make sure you're meeting with them or talking to them to make sure they have good characteristics and it's someone you could work with. And then all good things will happen. Again, my name is Jason Balin at Hard Money Bankers. I like doing these free videos for aspiring hard money lenders and other experienced hard money lenders that are looking to scale to the next level. If you're interested in working directly with us, I will put a link below. My business partner, Chris, and I have a mastermind group, and we do several events throughout the year as well. Definitely looking forward to seeing you at an upcoming event.